Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there, nation. Welcome to another edition of Age of the Realms. This is Battle Report number 10 with the Warhammer Age of Sigmar. On this one is also kind of like a really cool battle report because an old buddy of mine, Short and Stumpy is his alias when I'm using for these channels. He's back with his Dwarf army, and the last time I played this guy was back in 8th edition almost a year ago, so it's kind of glad to have this guy come back again and scrap up with him. So once again, I committed Cheapskate with my Wyld Hunt, which is my Sylvaneth 4 Spirit Wargrove, versus my old buddy Short and Stumpy with Clan Bodesson, the Dispossessed Artillery Battery. And so yeah, let's see what happens when old two rivals start mixing it up again, once again after a year. Alright, so let's talk about my army as always, which is the Wyld Hunt, is my Sylvaneth 4 Spirit Wargrove. I have Durthu, Coadil, the Tree Man Ancient, Sternbark, the Tree Man, Dryka, the Branch Wraith, Briarmaven, the Branch Wraith, Siobhan of the Shadows, which is my 3rd Branch Wraith. I then have my 6 Treekin, the 4 Shamblers, followed by the Court of Tides, which are 20 Dryads of the Branch Nymph, the Court of Summer, which are 15 Dryads of the Branch Nymph, and the Court of Winters, which is also 15 Dryads with a Branch Nymph. And that basically brings up my entire battle for this one. Alright, so let's talk about Short and Stumpy's Clan Bodesson, which is a Dispossessed Artillery Battery. Leading, we have Lord Doyle Finway, who's Dwarf Lord with Shield Bearers, as well as a Great Rune Weapon. After that, we have Grim Borlickson, as well as Tilde Vilion, which is the hitter. He's a Rune Lord. Next by Babian Sorg, the Cursed, who is a Dwarf Thane with a Battle Standard. After that, we have Joseph Bugman, followed by Den Rotostalker, which are 30 Dwarf Warriors of full command with double-handed Dwarf Axes. After that, we have Bugman's Rangers, which are 20 Dwarf Quarrelers with full command. Den Gronadreist, which is basically 20 Quarrelers with full command. Den Troublepole, which are 20 Dwarf Miners with full command. Then finally, has his War Machines, then Pol Martina, which is Dwarf Cannon, then Sai Jungen, which is an Organ Gun, and rounding out his army is Den Karl Yester, which is a Grush Thors. That's right, I'm taking out a classic Dwarf gun line in this one, so let's see what happens in this one.
Assemble the army!
Alright, so let's talk about deployment real fast. You can see both our armies have been assembled. My opponent decided to divide the board along the long axis of the target, so we're actually fighting along the long center part of the board, which is kind of neat. First time to do that for a while. Plus, it's kind of to his favor since he's a Dwarf gun line. So you can see there my army is basically deployed there on the left-hand side, and his army is deployed there on the right along that entire hill. So let's break down the individual deployment zones. So here in the bottom left-hand corner, standing alone next to that Sylvaneth Wild Brush, I guess is what you would call it, is my General Durthu. He's basically standing next to the Sylvaneth Wildwood, getting ready to call up some more Sylvaneth Wildwood with his string singing ability, and just looking as awesome as always. So that is deployment on the southern part of my board. And here's deployment on the north side of the board. So you can see there I have my 3 Branch Wraiths, Siobhan of the Shadows, Briarmaven, as well as Dryka, and I also have my 6 Four Shamblers, my 6 Treekin actually, and they're all just kind of like deployed right there, getting ready to do some action. And if you hear some popping in the background, what that is firecrackers, because you know nothing says like we should celebrate 4th of July and then firing firecrackers 2 days beforehand. So yeah, apologize once again for the sound in the background. And here's Short and Stumpy's deployment over here in the right-hand corner of the table. Like I said, we're playing on the long axis of the table, and he has his classic Dwarf gun line built up along that top of that hill there. So you can see there you got his 3 War Machines in the back, followed by his 20 crossbowmen in the middle, and then finally centering out with like a giant wall of Dwarf Iron is his massive unit of Dwarf Warriors with his General located inside there. He also has his Battle Standard Bearer as well as his Rune Lord behind him. I'm not sure you can see that, but they're right by that General, which is the pewter model right in the center, and they're kind of standing along the base of that hill as well, so that's going to be one tough nut to crack. And to make things worse, that's not his entire army either. We also have Joseph Bugman and 20 Dwarf Rangers laying in wait, ready to ambush me as well, so Dwarf Ambusher is definitely something I was not expecting in Age of Sigmar. I never got up against that, but we'll see what happens with that. So here is half of his ambushing force. And here's Ambusher's team number 2, which are 20 Dwarf Miners with a massive mule cart on that one. I didn't know this when my buddy Stumpy showed me that actually in the rules, the old cart from, what was it called, Battle of Fire Pass or Black Pass, whatever that happened, that version of Warhammer, that first starter set, basically you use the mule and it fires off rockets, which is kind of cool, like steam rockets or something like that. It's pretty awesome, that part too. So yeah, that makes up my opponent's second Ambusher, and with deployment done, we go to first turn. Alright, so we start off with turn number 1 for the Sylvaneth because I have the least amount of guys being deployed, so I go first. So we go directly to the command phase. You don't see in this picture right now, but you'll see in another one off to the far right, off frame. I basically set up another Sylvaneth Wildwood for my guys to go into that one so that way they can get closer to the Dwarf lines and still be able to have cover from those magical silver woods. So that's pretty much what Durthu does. As you can also see in this picture as well, I get some spells off. I kind of assemble a little group of dryads right in the forest there. I rouse them to war for 2 of my spells, and I also use my third spellcaster to cast Mystic Shield onto Durthu to protect him from that long-range dwarf artillery, which I know is just itching to kill him. With magic as well as command phase is done, as you can see in this picture, I basically just set everything moving forward as fast as I can with movement. First of all, I teleport Durthu from one Sylvaneth forest to this one here that's located here in the bottom of the center part of the table, so that's where his forces go to. As you can see, my treekin as well as my 3 branch rays just basically just run from the one Sylvaneth forest to the next little shrubbery section of Sylvaneth forest right there in the middle, which is right there in the middle of the table. And then basically I run my dryads into the Sylvaneth forest, which is to the right hand side, which Durthu summoned up in the command phase, getting ready to lock it down onto those dwarves. So that makes it with movement. And with movement done, and there's no shooting as such, we go directly onto the dwarf's turn. Alright, so now we start off with turn number 1 for the dwarves. You can see as in the command phase, the dwarves don't really do much of anything except for basically use their command abilities as well as casting buffs onto their troops. Their dwarves are not going to do much moving anyway, so they're just getting themselves ready for the inevitable climatic battle that's coming their way. So yeah, that's what they do for this turn. As you can see in this picture, basically the Dwarf Lord uses his grudging ability and basically gives a +1 to wound onto my first unit of dryads up close as that. He also uses his Battle Center Bearer to basically plant a standard of basically his entire army located on the hill. Do not have to test for bottle shock tests, which is kind of rough, but you know, they're dwarves and that's what they do, so that's what's going on this side of the board. And because when the buff train starts rolling for the dwarves, it just keeps on going, his Rune Lord basically comes up with one of his prayers and gives +1 rend to his crosswoman as well. So because of that, all of his buffs are now complete. And with command phase done, we go directly into the movement phase. And this is when karma comes back and bites me. Now, when it comes to Warhammer Age of Sigmar, I'm used to teleporting troops into places and surrounding my enemies and getting them double enveloped, so that's perfectly fine when I do that. I mean, that's what I do. That's my tactic. And when it's done to you, though, I realize that it is a pain when it happens to you. Right behind me, I get 2 units that just suddenly pop out of nowhere. First of all, we got Joseph Bugman and his Rangers, as well as his 20 miners just kind of pop out of nowhere. Now I realize that I am now surrounded. My poor branch race have nothing to protect themselves from any fire that's coming their way, as well as my treekin. They're pretty much double screwed as that part as well. So, man, having teleporting troops that just kind of burrow up and pop up around you, having you surrounded, is not fun at all. Now I know what my opponents go through, so that's not fun. But anyways, that's what movement phase having on this side. So here's a close-up of his unit of miners as well as his unit of rangers basically swarming in on my little command group behind their treekin. And so I just know now that my life decisions to put my guys right there in the middle of no cover is going to come back and haunt me. So yeah, with movement over with, we go directly into the shooting phase. And the shooting is bad. It is so bad. Basically, my opponent's entire artillery batteries, all 3 of his artillery weapons, as well as his crossbowmen, as well as his rangers, as well as Joseph Bugman, open fire on my treekin, as well as my 3 branch wraiths. And just like that, my 3 magic casters are now gone. Those 3 I usually count on for them to just cast Rouse to War, as well as Mystic Shielding. Maybe Arcane Bolt if I'm feeling a little despondent, as well as Ilariel's Blessing, which is the big one to help heal up my treemen. Now they're gone, so I have nothing now. And same thing with my heavy infantry. 4 of my treekin got wiped off the face of the planet from all that blasting of batteries that are just taking place on those poor guys as well. So I got 2 treekin left now, and I realize now that things are going to hurt. So with shooting out of the way, my opponent decided not to charge because he doesn't need to. Since there's no close combat, we go directly onto turn number 2. And luckily for me, for small favors, I basically get the initiative on this one. So turn number 2 for the top of it goes to me on this part. And as you can see here, basically for my command phase, all it is just limits me to Durthu's tracing up another copse of Sylvaneth Warists right there on the far right-hand side of the board, right just south of where that hill of Dwarven Gun lines are located at. So basically, that's all I can really do. My other casters are dead. I can't rouse to war anymore. I can't heal, so that part was kind of rough as well. So that's what's happening in the command phase. And with command over, we basically go down into the movement phase. And this basically is where I realized that I don't really need to worry about the fact that I'm being chased by dwarves behind me because they're dwarves. They only go 4 inches anyways, and my guys are a lot faster than theirs. So basically, I just teleport things in, teleport some forces around, and basically start deploying my troops like it's nobody's business. So as you can see up there in the center of the part there, I basically just call in everything. I call in my Court of Tides, my big unit of 20 Dryads there. The yellow ones are located there on the left-hand side, that Sylvaneth force in the center, to deal with whoever's coming charging by my back door. My Rouse to War Dryads, as well as my Court of Winters and Summers, basically teleport in and start surrounding and towards that Dwarf gun line, which is located there in the hill. And as you can see on the far right-hand side, I got all 3 of my treemen teleporting those 4, so basically bring the pain. So that is moving on this side of the board. Here's a close-up of my Dryads as well as my treemen getting ready to charge that hill, and that actually looks like a pretty cool photo now I think about it. That came up pretty epic looking. But anyways, that's what's going on that side of the board. And here's another photo with a close-up of my Dryads getting ready to charge into the frontage of all those Dwarf warriors with the Dwarf lords with the crossbows and the artillery pieces. That's sound tactics, right? Okay, I'm just making sure because that sounds like suicide to me. But anyways, those are my troops. And so, like, another really cool, epically looking photo. And here's a close-up of my 20 Dryads, the Court of Tides, facing down 40 sweaty dwarves who are really, really far away and not really have to worry about them too much until they close in. So, yeah, that is movement for this side of the board. So I accidentally forgot to take a photo of the shooting phase, but basically all I did was manage to plink off 2 dwarf warriors. All I basically did, my shooting was pretty much a wash. I think that's why I didn't take a photo of it. But since shooting is all done, we go directly to the charge phase. You can see here, everything just charges forward like it's nobody's business. My Rouse to War Dryads, as well as my Court of Winters with Durthu, as well as Sternberg, charge up into the trees and start bringing the pain onto that huge unit of Dwarven might that's right located on that hill. Unfortunately for me, Covadil basically failed his charge. Same thing with my Court of Summers, they also fill their charge as well, so they're still back behind where the other Sylvaneth forests are, but I'm feeling pretty confident about this, so yeah, I'm no worries on that part. So yeah, that's charge phases on this part. And with charges out of the way, we go directly into the combat phase, and of course I like to go with Durthu, who basically gets off 5 attacks with Elder Wrath's sword. As you can see there, he basically just chops that unit of dwarf warriors practically in half. He just destroys everything within striking range distance of him, and because of that, as always, Durthu is a freaking man. I don't care what anybody says, this guy is a beast. He just brings the pain like it's nobody's business. So anyways, that's what happened on this side of the battle report. And this photo basically shows you why I freak out a little bit, because all my Rouse to War Dryads got destroyed by the combined attacks of the Dwarf Lord, which is Finway Doyle, as well as his Dwarf Warriors, as well as his Battle Center Bear, as well as his Rune Lord, just doing their thing onto Rouse to War Dryads. And then I realized maybe I don't have enough Dryads to take on this hill, because if they chop through my Dryads that easily, Durthu and Sternberg are going to have one heck of a time trying to get to this hill. But anyways, that's what happened on combat. And because treemen are like the greatest thing in life, Sternbark basically just curb stomps on the dwarf cannon, just destroys it and its crew. So that part was pretty epic as well. So man, treemen, I just love treemen. If there was a way I could just have an army of treemen and be able to afford it, that would be like really cool at the same time. But I don't know, maybe not though, because apparently point values are going back to Age of Sigmar, so might not be able to do that anymore. But anyways, that's what happened with Sternbark causing the chaos. And finally, closing out the rest of the combat phase, my Court of Summers basically piles into the unit of Dwarf Warriors and manages to kill off about another half of the unit. So basically, that Dwarf Warrior unit is now down to the quarter of his size that it used to be. He's not going to do me much good, though, because they're immune to battle shock, so that's not going to do much as well. He also managed to kill a couple, wasn't able to fight back because he already fought that turn, so that part was kind of nice. But anyways, that's basically what happened on this part. So with combat rounded out, we go to turn 2 for the Dwarves. Alright, that takes us to the top of turn number 2 after the command phase, and basically the buff train just keeps on rolling for these dwarves. Basically immune to battle shock for the entire army on this hill as well. He also gives his grudging ability against Durthu, so now they have a +1 to wound on my poor guys, so that part was kind of sad as well as the +1 to rend on for those crossbowmen as well on top of the hill. So that pretty much makes the command phase for my opponent on this part. Movement is pretty straightforward for my opponent. Basically, he just moves up with his troops as quickly as he can. He basically doesn't run them because I think he wants to shoot with them in his next shooting phase. So that part's kind of scary as well. So basically, all my Court of Tides guys do is basically just hold their ground because these are dwarves, and they're gonna make. I'm gonna make them come to me because I'm not going to them because dwarves in close combat are scary, and I want to delay that action as much as possible. Alright, and that takes us directly to the shooting phase. The shooting phase for me was actually kind of lucky because my opponent kind of rolled badly on this part. His dice simply abandoned him. All 20 of his crossbow would open up onto Durthu. Basically, they inflicted one wound on that group because that 4-up is just really rough for my opponent. It's pretty bad on that part. So you get the +3 to wound, but a lot of his guys didn't even make their shots because I only wounded Durthu once from that part. And then between his organ gun as well as his grudge thrower misses twice. His organ gun basically jams up, but has managed to, because of his engineer being there, he only managed to get off like a couple rounds. 2 more wounds landed on Durthu's for a grand total of 3, so not so bad considering that part done. And so with shooting over, we go directly to the charge phase. And as you can see, the charge phase, the crossbowmen just kind of swarm Sternbark, which kind of surprised me a bit. I thought he was going to go after Durthu, but then again, I could also realize why he wouldn't do that, because Durthu has mad attacks when he's such close range to that Sylvaneth force. So now I realize I basically have one of 2 options. I could send Durthu in to kill those lords, or I could send directly to the war machines, which I'm planning on doing the next turn because those war machines got to die. So because of that, that's charging in this phase. Alright, and for the combat phase, you can see in this picture, basically, I managed to slip 1 more wound onto Finway, Doyle Finway, the dwarf floor, managed to flip on one of that guy, managed to kill the rest of his dwarf warriors as well, but when they counter-target, they basically killed 3 of my dryads at the same time. So basically, this round of combat was just all kind of flippertastic. I didn't even take a picture of the Sternbark crosswind fight because that was an absolute joke on that one. Talk about a bunch of 1s being rolled on both sides. It was ridiculous. No wounds were inflicted between Sternbark or those crossbowmen. So basically, those guys just kind of stared at each other, made funny faces the entire time. So with combat over with, we go directly onto turn number 3. And luckily for me, turn number 3 starts off with a Sylvaneth because I win my initiative round. As you can see in this picture for the command phase, basically what it is, I summon up another set of Sylvaneth Wildwoods right to the left-hand side of the board, right behind those miners, because it's time to surround and pound those guys, because that's the next big threat after the threat on the hill. So that makes a command phase on this side of the board. And on this side of the board with the command phase, I use Ilariel's Blessing with Coadil, the Tree Man Ancient. He casts that onto Durthu and basically heals him up 2 wounds, which is kind of nice. And now Durthu's only carrying on 1 wound, which is pretty awesome for me. It would have been more epic if my Branch Wraith had not died, because I could just spam that spell all day, but you know, I'll take what I can get at this point. And with the command phase over, we start going to the movement phase, and we start exercising some teleporting fun, is basically what we start doing. So you can see on the left-hand side, I teleported Coadil from the forest on the right-hand side to the newly summoned up Sylvaneth forest on the left-hand side, because I got to kill me some miners. And as you can see on the bottom of the page, basically my Court of Summers basically just ran from the base of that Sylvaneth forest on the right-hand side to join up with the Court of Tides right there in the center. So that makes a move for this side of the board. Basically, in this picture, Durthu moves up the hill to start engaging the war machines. Now, it looks like he's in base contact with those models, and technically he is, but the reason why is because this was the only way I could put Durthu on that hill without it falling over. So basically, that's why he's positioned the way he is. In our heads, let's use the imagination that Durthu is at least 3 inches away, so that's basically what he's doing, because, let's face it, there's no way this guy's going to fail that charge. Those war machines anyway, so yeah, that's movement phase. And with movement phase basically done, we go directly into the shooting phase. With that, we go directly into the shooting phase. You can see in this picture, Coadil managed to plink off a couple of dwarf miners with his Doom Tendril staff, so pretty lackluster on his side of the board, but that is not the main part of the shooting phase. The most important part of the shooting phase is happening next. But on this side, Durthu attacks his Lamentations of Despair spell. Now, this spell, you basically need 3s to hit as well as 5s to wound. And for whatever reason, Durthu just felt like just letting on the Lamentations, because basically he managed to get off 7 wounds onto that catapult with his Lamentations of Despair spell. I've never seen it do that before in my life. It was pretty epic. So because of that, that catapult is now dying from despair, which is always a good thing in my opinion. As you can see in this picture, we basically put a few more wounds onto Lord Finway, Doyle Finway, which is the dwarf lord with the shield bearer. So that part's kind of nice. We actually pump him up to almost, I think, 4 wounds on that part. So that part was pretty cool. But unfortunately for me, though, basically half of my dryads, well, not even half, I'm sorry, a quarter of my dryads from that unit are basically, no, not a quarter. A third. Sorry, math is hard. So yeah, about a third of my dryads are left over. So and leaving those dryads to fight those guys alone is not a good idea. But right now, unfortunately, Dirthu's kind of occupied killing dwarf war machines. So that's what happened on this side. On this side of the hill during the combat phase, Sternberg managed to kill off half of these dwarf quarrelers, but at the same time, they managed to inflict a wound on him, which is kind of sad as well, so I'm not feeling too great about that. But you know what? It happens. I mean, I really can't complain. He is taking out 20 dwarf crossbowmen and only receiving one wound, so kudos, I guess. And because Durthu is just made out of pure awesomeness, he attacks with his Eldar sword and manages to destroy the last remaining organ gun, so no more artillery from my opponent, so that part's kind of nice. But because his Eldar sword was enough to destroy that catapult attack, he has one more attack for the close combat phase, which is his Impaling Claws. And luckily for me, my opponent's Dwarf Engineer is located right there in the center. Needless to say, Durthu managed to inflict a wound upon my opponent, drops him down a wound. I roll my score, my d6 again to get the difference in score. I rolled a 6. My opponent only has 4 wounds left, so Durthu basically just impales Grim Burlockson on his long claws, and that dude is now dead. Which is pretty awesome. This is why I love Durthu, because Durthu is the freaking man when it comes to combat. So with War Machines taken care of, I can basically swing around and have him take care of Lord Doyle Finway at the same time. So yeah, that rounds up the combat phase. With that, we move on directly to turn number 4. Whoops, not turn number 4, we're talking about turn number 3 for the dwarves. So as you can see, this is command phase again, and basically he just starts bringing out the goodness as usual. He moves his grudge this time against Durthu, which kind of makes sense because Durthu's like the biggest threat and decided to take him out as well. He also plants his standard no battle shock during this phase, so that's basically going on with that part as well. And he also gives +1 to Rend once again to the remaining crossbowsmen to basically take on the rest of Sternbark. So that is command phase on this side of the board. And with that, we go directly to the move phase. You can basically see he just inches up his dwarves once more again. So, unfortunately, these guys only move 4 inches apiece, so that's kind of rough for them. But he's basically making good time. Basically, those miners now within charge distance as well as shooting distance, which is kind of rough for me as well. And same thing with those dwarf rangers. They're definitely within shooting distance of Coadil, so they might be bringing the pain next turn. So because of that, with movement done, we go directly to the shooting phase. And those dwarves do some shooting. Between those explosive charges that those dwarves can do is pretty epic, as well as the steam cannon thing, rocket launcher thing that's on that mule cart. Basically plinked off 6 of my dryads, so that part was kind of sad on that part as well. So yeah, shooting with those miners, man, those guys are pretty beasts when they get close range on you. And the dwarves opened up on Coadil as well as managed to put 1 wound on that guy. Let's face it, the only reason why Coadil survived 2 volleys of crossbow fire is basically based on 2 things. One, the low weapons, the ballistic skills and the hit abilities of those dwarf rangers, as well as the fact that Durthu is also located in cover, which gives him a +1 save. So basically, he just doesn't have to roll any 1s for his armor save, and he's okay. So that part was pretty cool. But I am kind of sad that Coadil did get hit, though. But, you know, small blessings and all that jazz. And with shooting done, we go directly to the charge phase. Sorry about the blurriness of this picture, but basically, my opponent's Thane, as well as his Rune Smith, or Rune Lord, whatever he's called, basically charges directly into Durthu as well. So I think that's kind of like more like a suicide thing in order to keep Durthu from getting into his Dwarf Lord, which kind of makes sense, but you know, because Durthu, man, he's the man. So anyways, that's charged on this side of the board. And after blowing a few of my dryads with some explosive charges, the miners also charged directly into my Court of Ties as well. So that part is kind of sad. But you know what? It was eventually bound to happen anyway. So with close combat coming up next after this one. In the close combat phase, Lord Doyle Finway finished off the last of my dryads. He's looking like the man, but he's also carrying 4 wounds, which is also kind of nice as well. So that's pretty much close combat on this side of the board. And on this side of the board, Durthu basically just cleans up both of those Thane with the Battle Standard Bearer as well as the Runes Lord, so that part was kind of cool. So now it's just down to Dwarf Lord versus Giant Tree Man character, so that'd be kind of cool to see what happens in that battle. So that's what happened in this photo. Combat between the miners as well as my Court of Ties is also kind of brutal as well. They managed to kill 5 on each side when it came to the combat being done, so basically not enough to really push victory one side or the other, so basically the grind fest will continue with these guys. And these miners, man, with that -1 to Rend, is pretty rough on that part, so yeah, not looking too good for the home team on this part. Dwarves are hella tough when it comes to close combat. So we go directly to turn number 4. My opponent basically gets the initiative on this part, so he's going back to back on this part. Now, not only was this photo also supposed to show what's going on with the command phase for turn number 4, but basically I'm also trying to show you basically what happened on the other side of the board as well with close combat. I forgot to show that part. Basically, Sternbark managed to finish off the rest of those Dwarf Quarrelers like it's nobody's business. So basically, all those Quarrelers are now dead. So now we got 2 Treemen on the hill facing down 1 Dwarf Lord, and the combat, the hero phase, basically the Dwarf Lord focuses his grudge ability onto Dirthu. So with movement out of the way, we go directly on. Sorry, not movement. With command out of the way, we go directly to the movement phase. With command out of the way, basically go to the movement phase. You can see in this picture here, basically all Doyle Finway does is turn around and get within 3 inches of Dirthu and basically start shouting insults at each other because that's all they pretty much can do at this point. So that's movement on this side of the board. And on this side of the board, and once again I apologize for the blurriness of the picture, basically the Joseph Bugman and his Rangers basically move 4 inches upward towards Coadil, getting ready to charge, or to shoot at him, whatever the case may be. So that's basically located on this part. And with that, we go directly to the charge phase because basically shooting was a wash. And as you can see in this picture, basically Lord Doyle Finway charges up directly to take on Dirthu. And that's basically what happens in this picture for charges. Joseph Bugman and his men try to charge into Coadil, but unfortunately for them, they failed their charge roll. So with that out of the way, we go directly into combat. Combat proved to be very costly for Dirthu. The very first combat was between Lord Doyle Finway and Dirthu, and he managed to slip all 3 of his attacks through and was unable to save any of them. So because of that, he dished out 9 wounds because each of his attack basically does 3 damage. So combat was very, very deadly for Dirthu. Dirthu managed to finish off Lord Finway like it's nobody's business, but still, 9 wounds, not good whatsoever. So that's combat on this side of the board. And combat on this side of the board proved to be very, very deadly for, costly for the miners. The miners finally wiped out the rest of my Court of Tides. That part was pretty rough, but I also managed to take out a big chunk out of the dwarves at the same time as well, so that part was kind of nice as well. So after Battle Shock phases, this is all that's basically left of those 2 forces. I lost the rest of my troops. He lost a couple more as well. So that is combat as well as Battle Shock. With that, we go directly onto the next turn. Alright, so this is the bottom of turn number 4 for the Sylvaneth. Basically for the command phase, you can see there, basically I call up 2 more Sylvaneth Wildwoods right in front of the hill there, so that basically I'm within range of those Sylvaneth Wildwoods so that way I can teleport out of there when the time comes. So that is command phase on this side of the board. And in the movement phase, I pulled the cheese card, and basically I teleport Coadil out of that situation into that forest that was right over there next to the hill as well. At the same time, I also moved Sternbark into the forest as well, so that way he's looking at that part. I basically moved and ran him toward that newly summoned up Sylvaneth Wood. As you can see on the bottom right hand side there, and towards the center, I basically swing up my Court of Winters, or to basically take on that unit of miners and to finish those guys off. So that's basically what happened in the movement phase on this part. Here's a close-up of my Court of Winters getting ready to charge with the remainder of those miners and getting those guys wiped out. And up there you can see the Dwarf Rangers looking upset because Coadil transported out of there. And here's a close-up of my 3 Treemen, basically out of harm's way and just basically buying some time in order to heal up Dirthu. So with movement directly out of the way, we go directly into shooting, but unfortunately shooting is all out of range, so because of that we go directly to the charge phases. And my Dryads basically go in for the kill. They charge the rest of the remainder of that unit of miners and plan on wiping those guys out with the combat phase. And since charges are over, we go directly into the combat phase, and those poor miners never stood a chance. We managed to wipe out those guys before they even get a chance to even get a counterattack down. So because of that, that sums up combat phase. And with that, we go directly under turn number 5. Both Short and Stumpy and I roll off for the initiative, and turn 5 starts off with the Sylvaneth, so that just makes it even more epic. So, and this turn for the command phase, basically I used Dirthu's Tree Singing ability to bring up 2 more Sylvaneth Wildwoods just above those poor Rangers. And basically, as you can see there, they're now stuck in the middle of this nice little ring of Sylvaneth Forest, and oh yeah, you know exactly what's coming next. In this side of the board with the command phase, Coadil basically sprinkles some pixie dust onto Dirthu and heals him up 3 more mortal wounds as well. So he's still carrying 6, but it's still not bad. But so that rounds up the command phase, and with command phase over, we go directly into the movement phase. And as you see in this picture, we basically surround the poor Joseph Bugman and his Rangers. They're now stuck in the middle of a copse of Sylvaneth Wildwoods, with Dryads moved up to the right-hand side, Coadil to the left-hand side, and above them, behind them, you have both Sternbark as well as Dirthu. And basically those poor Dwarven Rangers are shivering in their britches because they know exactly what's coming next. And just like that scene at Jurassic Park, basically we just swarmed them like raptors. As you can see, all of my guys basically, man, we got Durthu, we got Sternbark, we got Coadil, as well as the remainder of the Court of Wonders as well. Those poor Rangers do not stand a chance whatsoever. So after charge is getting done, we go directly to the combat phase, and we destroyed to the man, but not without some damage being done in return. Basically, those Rangers, as well as Joseph Bugman, managed to put 2 more wounds onto Durthu, putting up to 8 wounds as well. They also managed to put on 3 more wounds onto Coadil, killed a handful of my Dryads, and also managed to put another wound onto one of my treatment as Sternbark as well. In the end, when we counterattacked, we ended up just basically destroying that entire unit, so it was pretty epic. So because of that, all those dwarves are now dead. And with the Dwarf Rangers now dead and gone, as you can see that basically ends the battle for this part. As you can see there's nothing left but really Sylvaneth Wildwoods, as well as a good majority of my forces as well. And I could not believe how long this battle took. This battle was epic. It was long. It took us about all 5 turns. Basically, there was no one bowing out. It basically was fighting on to the bitter end. And so because of that, this game is now over. Time for the after action report.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle that we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle again. So this is the after action report for battle report number 10. It was I, Commander Cheapskate, my Wyld Hunt with my Sylvaneth Forest Spirit Wargrove versus Short and Stumpy of Clan Bodesson of the Dispossessed Artillery Battery. And it ended up being a victory for yours truly and in the end. So let's talk about some of the factors that basically led to that. First of all, my ability to travel on the Spirit Path is a lifesaver as always in these battles. The ability to outmaneuver my opponents is also to surround them and to totally envelop them is always a lifesaver when it comes to tactics on this game. So like I said before, Age of Sigmar, the tactics are definitely there. With the higher movement allowances and the ability to teleport troops around, you could definitely do some interesting combat maneuvering to defeat your opponent. Treeing Singing, once again, is too epic of a command ability as well. The ability to bring up Sylvaneth Wildwoods to add support for my troops for combat is always good, so can't say enough about that command ability. Now, this battle is kind of interesting because in this battle I faced ambushing dwarves, and those dwarves are kind of scary considering they popped up. In my opinion, it was kind of rough because they surrounded me. Most of the time I surround my opponents, no one surrounds me, so being on the opposite end of that was actually not that cool. I now know what it feels like to be completely surrounded, to be frustrated that way, so that part was kind of cool as well. However, I do feel that my opponent did deploy too soon. I think that was the only thing that saved me. He wasn't close enough to really, pursue that and to really put the pounding in like most of my guys can when it comes to their speed, because their dwarves are kind of slow that way. So that was the only thing I think that really saved me. If my opponent had deployed his troops differently at a different time and a more key opportune moment, I think it would have been really bad for me because I would have been put in the pincer and not him, and so that could have dealt with that part. I didn't feel too comfortable dividing my forces up either. Basically, my army has to rely on swarming an opponent and using a lot of support attacks from all different sides. So dividing up my forces that way to deal with those ambushing dwarves wasn't that great. It didn't feel good with that. Didn't feel too great to me because of that, so it was kind of rough as well. When it comes to Dwarf artillery as well as characters are not to be messed with, and fighting them in hand-to-hand combat is no joke either. Dwarves are solid, they're tough, just like they are as always, as good dwarves should be. So, if you ever fight against dwarves, always overestimate, in my opinion, because when it comes to close combat, don't want to mess with a dwarf. This was an epic game. It was an epic struggle. As always, whenever I fight against Short and Stumpy, his clan Bodesson dwarves are no jokes. Those Boston Red Sox boys are always, that's what basically means. Bodesson in Norwegian basically means Boston. So, but fighting against the Boston Red Sox in Warhammer is never fun. Well, it's fun, but it's always an epic struggle, and you basically got to really earn that victory. And so, yeah, always have a good time as well. And also, by the time of this battle report, we also realized now that there are new units for the Sylvaneth army. It's basically came out with White Dwarf magazine, which is kind of cool. So I love seeing new Sylvaneth troop choices because we basically only have like a handful of troop choices we can use for armies. So it'd be nice to see what we could use. So maybe we might see them in the next bat rep. Granted, it might be proxy heavy, but you never know. So that'll do it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. This is Battle Report number 10 for Age of Sigmar. That one is now into the books and is over. As always, feel free to like, subscribe, comment. I'm liking the back and forth, like making the improvements on these battle reports, and you guys basically make it all worth it. So keep on putting that input in. And so I'll see you guys next time. Adios.